Today's guest is Jamie Graber, a teacher, coach, moon lover, mind shifter, and energy mover. She's the founder of Organically Jamie, former owner of Gingersnap's Organic, and author of Juice It, Blend It, Live It. Known for her passion for all things moon and manifestation, Jamie has guided hundreds of women worldwide to level up from good to great. In our conversation, we dive into meditation and how that perfectionistic voice we all have shouldn't keep us from trying this powerful practice. Get ready for a transformative chat on mindset, intentions, and of course, making time.
Jamie, I'm really so excited to have you on the pod today because what we're going to be talking about, you guys, is just amazing and has really been personally helping me out lately. So, Jamie, let's just ask you, what is the most important thing that women should be making time for and why?
Meditating. And because with a meditation practice, you are actually able to get yourself out of reaction and into choice. And when we live a life from choice rather than reaction, everything changes. And that is how we stop yelling at ourselves for not being a good enough mom. That is how we stop yelling at people when we don't want to yell at them because we're in a place of choice. It's how we actually decide to show up for ourselves in the way that we really want to. In all aspects, that means in the way we take care of ourselves and the way we treat other people is when we can learn to come from a place of choice rather than reaction. And that is the gift of meditation.
Yeah, I love that. And so I think that we're so prone to be reactive. And I think for me personally, and I've been really delving into meditation for the last year and a half or so, it has really allowed me just some clarity and some peace and to turn off the reactiveness of my emotions and my brain and my body and my everything. And so for women who are listening at home who've never done this or tried it or had a bad experience or whatever, what are 3 actionable ways that women can make time to start meditating?
I think even before you talk about the actionable ways to make time for it, it's really understanding that there's no perfection in it and allowing it to be that sometimes you might sit there, whether it's 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever your practice is, knowing that it might not be peaceful. It might not be anything, but it's just a moment for you to sit some days. And so we don't have to have this idea that it's you're the Buddha on the mountaintop with this perfect, non-thinking moment, because that's often not what it is. What it is more of is a space between your thoughts and yourself where you can see your thoughts. That's where the clarity comes in. So it's not like we're not going to have the emotions. It's not like we're not going to have the feelings. We want the feelings, but we want to know that that's just part of us. And I think that that's where meditation comes in. So that was my start thing. But the actionable steps is making an appointment the same way you would make any appointment with you. And I always say, figure out your day. If you're not the person who's going to say every morning at 6 a.m., I'm going to meditate before I start taking care of everyone else. If that's not possible for you, don't make that be your ask. It doesn't have to be perfect. People again, will think that it has to be first thing in the morning. No, you just have to look at your day each day, the night before, and figure out where can I slot that in and actually make sure you're slotting it in. Remind yourself every day how important it is and how you feel. Notice when you actually do it, how it shows up in your life more and more, because that starts to expand your connection to it. And then you start to recognize how important it is. And so you don't even wind up having to schedule in because you just know it. But at the beginning, it's really, really scheduling in. It is letting your partner, your family, whoever's around you know that it's important to you. And so that they can support you in making sure that it happens. And often having a community or a accountability person where you're sharing the experience with them. So you both can be like, hey, did you meditate today? A check-in and accountability so that you keep yourself on the path and you keep yourself in the conversation. Because often what happens, why some people don't meditate every day, is they just forgot. And so instead of just forgetting, let it be part of your day, because that also helps it to grow what it does for you when you're connected to why you're doing it.
Okay. And so for people that really don't even, I know meditation looks different for different people, and there's many different ways that people could could practice meditation. So can you really kind of like break it down? Like for someone who's never meditated before, that doesn't even know what it is, can you just break it down for the people listening? Because that was me not too long ago.
So meditation actually really is just the training of the mind. Like at the end of the day, that's what it is. And so whether that means like I do a lot of chanting stuff and then I do a lot of breathwork stuff, you're using different tools. Again, it could be you staring at a candlelight. It could be you staring at a crystal. Like there's so many different like focus points that you can use. It could be the counting of a breath. It can be a chant. But all these things are tools for you to be able to focus your mind for that 1 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute. So that then in life, you can move your mind. Because what you'll often see with, let's say, a count meditation or a chant or a mantra meditation is that you can find yourself in that 5 minutes wandering, and then you realize you've lost the count or you've lost the breath or you've lost the mantra, and you take it back. You're like, oh, okay, let me grab it again. And so it shows you that in real life, I could be spinning out about something, or I could just move my mind back to the mantra or the chant. And so when you have a practice of meditation, you have these moments where you feel yourself regulated, when often we're walking around life not regulated. And so if we have a connection to how we feel regulated, and it's anchored in, again, a breath, a chant, whatever that looks like, in our real life, we're able to access that when we feel ourselves deregulating, hearing the mantra again, hearing the count, and being like, oh, I can move my mind if I want to, like I do in that meditation. And so ultimately, it is just a training of the mind and having tools to help you to understand how you can train your mind to work in the way you want. And then ultimately, the hope is, unless at least I believe, is that it also connects you to something spiritual and something outside yourself. And that is where life becomes much more magical.
You know what I love that you said at the beginning of all of this was, I think for me, I'm a perfectionist and I want to do it right and correctly. And then this idea that, I'm not a Buddha. I want to be the Buddha sitting on top of the mountain with clear thoughts and breathing and just honing into like a nothingness.
Right.
But that is just not my case. I am a worrier. I ruminate on things and I have these thoughts, and sometimes dark thoughts that just come into my head. So meditating for me has not always been something easy or something that I want to gravitate to because of this idea of perfectionism. But what I love that you said is that is really not, that is not the case.
That's not the case. And there's like a saying, like the best meditator isn't the Buddha on the mountaintop. It's the one who does it in New York City while the tyrants are growing off, right? And is still able to sit. And it's like, my thing, especially as a mom, for example, it's like I can be meditating and like Porter, I have a 4-year-old, and he'll like walk into the room and want something from me, but I can choose to still sit because it's not immediate. Whatever he wants is not immediate. And I don't have to stop taking care of myself to run for him. I have to finish taking care of myself so I can happily then walk over to him and take care of what he needs. And now he'll come in and go, oh, mommy's meditating, and he'll walk out, and sometimes he'll sit down and he'll meditate with me. And I think that when everyone's like, always says to me, like, how do you become a good meditator? My answer is always, you do it every day. That's it. It's not about, you don't need the accoutrement, you don't need the crystals out and the incense burning. Sure, it's beautiful when you visualize it. And there's so much to that I love. But I also can do it inside my bathroom with someone screaming, with my kids screaming outside, like sitting with my husband, like he's not alone, like I'm not abandoning him, like he's being taken care of by someone else. But like, that's just as powerful as a practice, sometimes more so than the one in my, beautiful circle with all my women friends, like lighting it and like burning under the moon, right? So it's understanding that it's the idea that you're dedicating that time for yourself is so much of the practice. And then some days you will have peaceful moments. I am everything you described, the bad thoughts, all that stuff. That is how I was born. That is how I was wired. But that is no longer actually how I am. And that is because my meditation practice is non-negotiable. Like I had a C-section and I do all these weird things in my meditation and I like move around. They're like active, some of them. And we're in the hospital and I'm doing them and a woman comes in and my husband is like, here for a little more time, just in the middle of something, because it's like, it's non-negotiable to me. Like there's nothing that's going to stand in the way of my meditation practice, because I know who I was before and I know who I am now. And I'm not going to go back there at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you were just talking about, like the regulating and that word. And, as many of our listeners know, I lost my beautiful Bella last year. And when I was in that trauma and that immense, like, grief, like I sought out someone to work with personally. And for me, I think that's exactly the word. Like meditation has really helped regulate me when there was nothing else was working for me. Like, and obviously it was a very traumatic situation. I was in high trauma, massive grief. And I found this beautiful woman who would like every single week, like sit with me and kind of force me literally to meditate for 40 minutes and helped me. And I have to say, like personally, the regulation that has come out of my meditation practice has really saved my life. I mean, really been very like it's just completely changed the game for the season that I'm in, and it allows me, like, I know that I can count on that regulation if I just get in and do the work, and I can have that, like, kind of just that piece of self, like so it's been really, really personally very important to me. And like asked me 2 years ago, I'd be like, whatever, like that woo-woo stuff, to each their own. But now, like where I sit today, it's really been super. It's probably one of the most important things I do for myself. And I cannot like talk enough about the immense benefits of meditation.
I love this because knowing you and how, like, if it's not on the paper, like you're not, I just feel like the way your mind works, but to see you embrace this and how it's worked for you, like what a transformation, really.
Yeah.
Regulation is like where any type of healing can begin, because it gets you out of fight or flight, right? And when you're out of fight or flight, you actually, again, go back to that space where you have a moment to choose. You have a moment to choose your thoughts. You had brought up, dark thoughts. We all have intrusive thoughts. We're human beings in the human experience living in this wild world right now, right? And so it'd be almost impossible to not have some of those darker thoughts. It's the idea that you don't get lost in them, that you don't loop in them. And it's also knowing that, like, when you're regulated, you actually allow yourself to feel, right? You don't have to, like, when we're in fight or flight, sometimes we take ourselves completely out of the experience of feeling because we're too scared to, because we might not be able to leave the loop. And if we're regulated, then we can be present for whatever's happening, or whatever pain or anger or whatever's happening for us in that moment. And we can see it as just being this moment. And then allowing ourselves to fully experience it, not thinking that it will go on forever and ever and ever. And in that, you're able to be much more present for life, even in the moments that are harder, because you know that they're moments. And if you're in fight or flight, you don't always get to that space where you can recognize that they're moments. You see them as forever. A friend of mine once said to me, she was describing like what it's like for a child and like why they tantrum so much. And she was like, from their existence, they don't realize that the moment ends. They have such a limited time that for them, whatever pain is happening from that moment, they might think that it's never going to end because they just had very little experiences of it ending in their life. Whereas as an adult, we can look back and we can notice how much has been, not the way we want it, painful moments, but again, it ends. But in order to like be able to get to that like thought and like embody that thought, you need to be regulated so that you can see it and understand it. And then that really does, because life is about all of it. Life isn't just about the good times. It's about all of those times. And like, I will always say that if I'm present enough to feel the moment, even if it's painful, sometimes that's almost as good as the moment that's not painful, but I'm still present for, because it's the presence of life for life that really is the magic. of the feeling of like really, really embodying that present moment. And I think you can do that and be safe to do that when you're regulated.
Yeah. So, okay. So for the girls listening, for the women listening, they're into it. They want to try. So for someone who's never meditated before, can you just let them know what to do? Like, we're going to go home, we're going to meditate tonight. And if you could just give them a little tip on where even to start. Meditation 101.
Meditation 101, sit down, let it be quiet, and just start with something called the 3-part breath. You're going to inhale through your nose for 5 seconds. You're going to hold for 5 seconds, and then you're going to release out your nose for 5 seconds. You'll breathe into the belly and exhale out the belly for all of it, because that will also stimulate your response so that you are regulated. That's what that breath does, especially inside the belly. And you also then have yourself as a count. And so you'll be counting to yourself so that when you wander into that spin, go back to the count and do it for 5 minutes. And if being quiet for some of you is just too much, put on a beautiful song and let that play, but still hold on to the count.
It's even just the thought of breath, right? I know for me, as you were saying, breathe into your belly. And I'm like, I breathe into my chest. Like I am so up top here where, now I'm a little bit more, I am more conscious, but especially at night where I'm like, Emma, relax your shoulders, let your breath go through your body. And it's just incredible. It's actually quite so sad how, and so many of us, like we're just breathing in our chest. It's like this survival mode. But
it's fight or flight. It's fight or flight. And so it's like, we don't want to like shame ourselves for doing it, but we can recognize that there's a different way. What I find fascinating with breath is that we're the only like living things that can actually self-regulate. You can't, like a dog can't self-regulate. Like it's just the breath that's happening in that moment. But for us, we can choose to play with our breath. You can do something like in through the nose, out through the nose, and you can feel yourself just with one breath feel different. Or I can give myself energy, right? I can pump myself up. And it's like I watch my child again, who's 4, and like you see him using his breath. Granted, he obviously sees me using my breath a lot, but like he knows like when he can amp him up, he knows when he can calm himself down. And he naturally knows that all through being human. We just disconnect from that. But our breath is there to help us regulate our nervous system. And the more we tap into it, the more we're again able to get ourselves calm and then back to that space of choice and back to adaptive reaction.
I do that. I mean, I think we all are so guilty of just not breathing, and that turns into panic, and you're right in that fight or flight mode, especially when something really upsetting happens, or, whatever it is that kind of like spins you out. Just remembering to breathe, I think is so important, because we're just not breathing. And that creates a whole series of events that can make a situation much worse, And so I love the whole breath thing. Okay. So I think that I'm going to start meditating at home.
It's right now we're doing this Make Time Challenge. We're in the midst of it, called Make Time for 7 minutes of writing.
Oh.
Every day for 2 weeks, we have writing prompts, and it's just 7 minutes. And it's kind of sounding like we might have this new Make Time Challenge coming on, which is Make Time for medication. No, that too.
Yeah, that too. And I always say to everyone, there's nothing wrong with medication. Just don't replace the meditation with it. Do both.
That's like, maybe we'll flip it and do Make Time for meditation. That would be great.
I love it.
And do the best you can. That's always the answer. Also, do the best you can. If it looks like the count is nice, because you have something to anchor into if you are stirring. But if just breathing long in through the nose and out through the nose is all you got, that's great too. It's as long as you're just allowing the breath to move slowly and through you, things change. And then you have a better connection. The way our minds work, the subconscious mind, is that like if you have a breathwork practice that you do for 7 minutes a day, let's say, and you start to get regulated with that, and you're regulated during that time, it means that like when you're outside the regular world, you have a better time grabbing that regulation when stuff happens and you're in that space, because you have an association with it and you have a difference. You start to notice, oh, wait, I don't feel the way I did at my sit today, but let me just do that breath and find it. the more you have a connection to a regulated system, the easier it is for you to grab. And so the meditation practice isn't always about that 7 minutes of like blissful, no thoughts. It's about how you show up in the rest of your day because of that 7 minutes. That's actually what meditation is about.
I love it. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation.
Yeah, me too. So, I love this conversation. Thank you so much. So, here's our last question, Jamie. What are you not making time for that you're going to commit to making more time for today?
So, I don't cook enough. And I have everyone else cooking around me to the point where even like for the holidays, I don't touch a dish. I don't do anything. My husband used to be in fine dining. And so that was part of it. But really, I don't at all. And we moved into this great apartment with this great kitchen. I'm like, I'm going to start cooking. I haven't touched that. And we've been in here over a year. So that is definitely what I'm committing to, is cooking something, even if it's just a boiled egg.
How do we find you? Like, how do our listeners find you?
So I am at Organically Jamie on Instagram, and I'm also organicallyjamie.com is my website, and it's JAMIE.
Jamie, thank you so much. We loved this conversation with you, and we loved having you on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope that listening to our podcast has empowered you to make more time for yourself. So make sure to subscribe. Please leave a review and share with a friend who could use a healthy reminder on the importance of making time.
And make sure to keep tuning in, as we will continue to bring on incredible guests to share their Make Time tips on our upcoming episodes. And come say hi over at Make Time Pod, or visit us at maketimewellness.com.
Until next time, make time.